Listen to the Matt Brown Show. This is the Matt Brown Show. Matt Brown Show.
Cool. So how's it, guys? We are here with Rob and Sam Paddock from the Get Smarter team. You guys would have probably seen their acquisition for 1.4 billion rand. How do you guys feel about that? The 1.4 billion. Is it a number that you guys were?
Well, it's a billion. It's a big number, right? But I think the key for us is that it's just representative money. It's like an easy way to reference kind of the world, and for us, I think the underlying success of the business is more in its purpose terms and what these humans have been able to do at the tip of Africa. So that it's a very proud moment for all of us, and I think also a kind of a strengthening of the base of Get Smarter as it relates to our future potential. So yeah, proud. I mean, Rob, how do you feel?
I would only build on that to say that the point around the capability of South African entrepreneurs cannot be overstated. I have a personal view, and I have the privilege of spending a lot of time overseas, working with our US and UK based universities and prestigious faculty over there, working with a lot of business professionals there. And as South Africans, we are infinitely capable, and I don't think we back ourselves enough. And I think we need more stories like this, more success stories of South African companies winning on a global stage to help kick our butts into gear to realize that we've got what it takes. It's at the risk of sounding like a motivational speech. A lot of what we lack is in fact just a mindset that we need to go after this. I'm gonna go into full motivational mode if I carry on. So we need to.
We believe.
We're infinitely capable, and I think the short version is that the acquisition, certainly the proudest point for me personally, is that I think it stands as an indicator of what's possible.
I love that. And that's a large portion of why I do the Matt Brown Show, is simply to encourage people to start to believe in themselves. And I think if I was ever fortunate enough one day to have a headline like that, I mean, I keep saying I'm always in the Entrepreneur magazine, just never on the front cover. But my time's going to come, you know. But more importantly, I think you're a North Star for a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs. And I think it's great to finally get, like I would call it, a rands-based unicorn story in the market. And so congratulations on that.
Cool. Thank you.
Listen, you guys are all on catching on to our live stream at the moment on Facebook. Stick around because we're going to be giving away something really cool. It's worth up to 14,000 rand. So stick around. It's a question you're going to have to answer. So pay attention. So I believe that the idea for the business came actually from this whole thing called wine drinking. Your father was involved.
This is the anti-waffle introduction.
The anti-waffle introduction, yeah. So what is the headline story? I mean, a lot of guys have ideas for businesses. Usually it's because something is happening to them in their own lives and they're like, this fucking sucks and we want to change that, or it's just too painful. So what was the pain that you were going through when you discovered or came across the idea for, hey, let's start Get Smarter?
Let's try simple answer this time, because I know that, I wouldn't want to be accused of waffling. So, two brothers together with their mother and their father, set out to do something important. They come across the things that are closest to them. We did our best and we worked our butts off to get the very first customer, and that led to a win right at the start of our business journey, which gave us the confidence that you talk about believing in yourself. Well, there's nothing quite like when your first project of 4 or 5 months comes off, which our first project was this wine evaluation course from Stellenbosch University. And you get that affirmation, that confirmation that what you're doing, people will pay you for. And I think that gave us the sense of self-belief to go and do it again. And we did it again and again and again with other universities, and over time built a meaningful business. But I think that's that's my short version, Matt.
That is superb. In the name of succinctness, I will not add anything.
But you already did.
He couldn't help himself, eh?
Anything more up?
Yeah. So tell me something.
Put that purple microphone there.
Yeah. Just speak into the mic. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah. So good. Handbags down, guys. So basically, so I want to talk to you guys. Was this your first business foray, or had you had other failures that potentially you went through that people don't know about? Was it your first experience in business, or?
So Sam and I have slightly different stories there. I was fortunate enough to be part of a company that was based in Cape Town, South Africa, that then set up shop in London. And I was fortunate enough to be part of that in the trenches in a startup, getting a business off the ground in London. That wasn't my business, but I was very much involved. Sam's story is somewhat different.
Yeah, I've been trying to start businesses all my life and failing every moment of the way. I tried to sell Ninja Turtle stickers in grade 1. Grade 3, standard 1.
It was
made
trendy.
Made enough money for bunny legs, which is great. And then in university, tried to start, while I was overseas, tried to start a web design company in London. And then when I got back to South Africa, tried to compete with private property with a company called No Agents. Again, didn't work. And then I was co-founder of Get Wine in 2005, and then post Rob, myself, and our parents starting Get Smarter, we failed a lot. Like, we tried a lot of new things. We started a professional education agency for corporates, which we've now spun out with CEO Hannes Geldenhuys in something called Hubble Studios. When the electricity crisis hit, we tried to create backup box generators for lights and TVs. Disaster. And many other things along the way, which just didn't really work, to be clear. So I think it's been a relentless pursuit of something that sticks.
What would you say to entrepreneurs listening or watching us right now about failure? Because funny enough, I was just with Michael Jordan having a similar conversation about South African culture specifically, and our association, or the way that we perceive failure as not being cool. It's not the kind of thing that you look, okay, let's be honest, it's not sexy, failure. Okay, let's be honest also. But I think, I guess the point I would like to explore with you guys is, like, it's okay to fail. Like all those failures that you had, you were learning how not to make decisions, I imagine. Because in my case, with my 6 failed businesses and startups, it was actually about poor decision making, and you learn, because you don't learn that in a book. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you can have mentorship and business partners like you guys, do, and essentially maybe a board to help you make better decisions, but you're not a foolproof thing. Totally. Like, no one is.
Totally.
And what would you say to entrepreneurs watching us right now about failure and how to deal with failure?
And I think it's reasonably easy in theory or in principle to talk about failure and to talk about why it's so important and how you should expect it and so on. It's another to actually live through failure. You've lived through six business failures. Since we started, have launched a number of initiatives that just failed radically, and it's hard and it hits you to your core. I guess coming back to the kind of theoretical principles, though, you can think about currency as and there's a rand or a dollar value to currency. You can also think about currency, learning as a currency in and of itself. And I've found that subtle shift of mindset when thinking about learning as an actual currency that is something that builds over time in your life, to kind of soften the blow when the inevitable kind of ego hits happen. What you simultaneously realizing is that you've got this kind of mental, or let me speak for myself, I have a mental model of building a kind of learning bank account over time, which I know this sounds probably like a mental trick, but it's helped me to deal with some of when the challenges happen, how hard and how personally you take it. It's helpful for me then to view that as an asset that I'm in fact building over time, which at a future point in time, when the right opportunity meets this bank of learning that I've attained, will result in success. So I'm sure, Sam, you've got another way of dealing with it.
I really like that. The only thing I'm thoughtful on is, like, the paradox of success is that it's built on failure. It's just the way it is. Like, my wife's just given birth a year ago to twins, and like they just constantly fail all the time, and they learn from that failure, and so they progress. Whether it's walking, crawling, walking, eating, whatever it might be, and are we still on?
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally still live.
Good. Glad we're live. And so I think a big question for me is just like do we have a healthy relationship with failure? Because on the one hand, to use like a Silicon Valley anecdote, like it's also not healthy just to like say like I'm going to set out to fail. Like equally as it is unhealthy to like try and desperately avoid failure. And so my sense is like what's kept up, like the objective of business is to survive. Like we always think of it as thriving, No, bugger that. It's to survive. Like, and how do you survive? Like, and Rob and I've been through some hairy times in our
Especially
business
the early days of
like
freaking
it's
survival.
hard, man. Like, and I mean, the audience, the entrepreneurial audience will, I believe, resonate with this. Like, it is about survival. And as it relates to survival, you have to be a little paranoid about your risks and failing. I don't want to fail. Like, that doesn't mean that, to Rob's point, you don't give yourself permission to fail and to manage yourself through it. But God damn, like, I don't want to fail. So let's not fail. Let's do everything we can not to fail. And let's also understand that as we fail in the ordinary course of like the day, and hopefully not catastrophic failures, like those are the seeds of progress. I mean, Ray Dalio in his book Principles is like pain plus reflection equals progress. That's it. Like, it's such a beautiful model for life. So yeah, I just think it's about a healthy relationship with failure, one that has us like circling back to the failures, understanding it, extracting it for all its learning value, and then progressing.
Can I just say, for all of you watching us right now, like, totally buy Ray Dalio's book Principles. It's
totally.
like mind blowing. Are you reading it as well?
I have.
Yeah, you read it already.
I have.
Okay, so early bird, hey? Yeah, I mean, it's just
You're
crazy.
a little late there, Matt. When did you read it?
Yeah, no, I'm only catching up. I'm too busy, man. Like, I don't even know if that qualifies. That's an excuse. But it's an amazing book. I highly recommend that you guys check that out. So where shall we go from here? I mean, I think let's touch on crises. So every business goes through crises, whether you're having a growth or a scaling crisis, or whether it's a survival one. By the way, I completely agree with your sentiments about just hanging in there, because I reckon, like, if you hang in there long enough, you create luck. Luck comes to you. You create your own luck in that space. But if you look back at the whole journey and you were like, geez, Matt, you know, if there was one crisis that we had that really stands head and shoulders above everybody else, or everyone else, or everything else in the business, like, what would that be? And can you walk us through what were the events that led up to that and what you learned?
There's a lot, so I'll just give one that comes top of mind. We were working in an office across the road, Sam, and I'm sure you'll remember this as clearly as I do. And Sam and I, for a long time, used to sit next to each other, which was a great time. However, we weren't managing our cash flow effectively, and we were in May, and we realized that we weren't going to be able to pay salaries in July based on our current trajectory. And at that point, we probably had 120 staff or so. Is that about right? And that was about one of the most panicked feelings I've ever had. Just the sense of responsibility. When we talk about survival, we also need to talk about responsibility that your audience will no doubt feel. You feel a sense of responsibility to your team members to keep this thing going, to pay their salaries. They've got responsibilities to meet themselves. And the sense that we had not been paying enough attention and had gotten to the point where we might not even be able to pay salaries was probably one of the most heartbreaking moments of my life. Thankfully, we went immediately into action mode. We ran a massive early bird promotion campaign where students paid up front for a particular course. They would be able to get a discount. We managed to manage our cash flow just well enough to make sure that we got through that period. And I think, speaking to what was an obvious failure, we made sure that we never got into that position again. And so I think Sam's point is incredibly valid. Failures aren't much help if you don't get into the details and diagnose exactly what it was that resulted in that failure, and make sure that you don't do it again. That was a pretty scary moment. What other crises can you think of, bro? There's been lots.
I think totally agree with that. There have been many, and I think that's a potentially catastrophic crisis. There's many crises that occur every day, and it's the little crises that build towards the big crises, right? That's the way the world works. I don't really have much more to add on that in terms of crisis. The only thing, I will add. I think that the Japanese word for crisis is interpreted as both threat and opportunity, which is interesting for me. And Rob describes like the opportunity to learn and never get back to that position again. Like that, I think it's again a healthy view of what it means to deal with and engage with, grapple with crisis. And some of the greatest pain, to go back to Dalio, is caused by crises. So the greatest opportunity for progress is the crisis is the seed of that growth. So it's not nice it's uncomfortable. Like you can't live in a permanent state of crisis because your anxiety will drive you through the roof. But yeah, I think every business has it, right? I mean, for you, like the crises you've gone through, like our lives are defined by how we deal with those crises. They're inflection points.
Yeah, I think so. I totally agree. I mean, I was doing an event to like 600 people. We're broadcasting it in over 50 countries around the world, and the stream, we had connectivity issues, so it was beyond.
Did you?
Yeah, no, just you shut your mouth. I'm in your office, dude.
Let's talk about a crisis.
Yeah, let's talk about crisis. But anyway, I'm laboring the point now. But basically, before you rudely jumped in, was
at least I didn't waffle.
Things go wrong, and oftentimes they're beyond your control. And I think those are the times when you take, or at least I do anyway, I take those things when they go wrong and they're beyond your control, like personally. And often, like the cash flow thing, like if you weren't aware of the numbers at the time, like you very well could have lost. I mean, geez, that would have been a come to Jesus conversation, with 120 people. And I don't think that would have been a very easy one to have 120 times over. So I guess like when you get hit, it's that saying by Sylvester Stallone. It's like, it's not how hard you get hit, but it's about how hard you get hit and then stand up again. And a lot of guys fail and they get hit and they lose businesses and actually they give up the pursuits of their dreams. And I can say firsthand experience, like I'm a guilty party. Like I've been that guy. And it takes a lot of courage to get up again. What would you say to entrepreneurs who've lost their shirts off their back and are a bit ambivalent now about reaching out for the stars and pursuing their dreams? What would you say to that person? How do you get them to stand up again?
So something I've seen work, and this is very practical advice as opposed to kind of a philosophical view, but something I've seen work exceptionally well with entrepreneurs that have fallen off, that have had a series of bad runs, that have run into some trouble and have had to go back to full-time employment to make ends meet. What I've seen work more often than not is that they're so conscious of the cash flow issue, and so they should be. Often we're at the point that you're at late 20s, early 30s, even to your 40s, 50s. You've got real responsibilities, and managing your own cash situation and having that stress taken off the table helps you to make better decisions about your business. So I'm sure you may have experienced, or I'm sure many of the listeners have experienced, if you are making decisions based on meeting short-term cash objectives again and again and again and just getting money in the bank, you're likely to be setting yourself up for a ultimate business failure. What I've seen work well is when people do part-time work which just sufficiently covers their expenses and start a business on the side. You don't necessarily at the early stages need to dedicate yourself to it full-time. Make sure that your basic expenditure is taken care of by the reliable income stream that you have from regular work, and then start your business on the side. You're going to work like hell in order to do that. But there's got to be sacrifice in order to actually start gaining sufficient traction with your business to get it to the point where you can justify jumping in full-time. So that's a very practical suggestion.
Yep, great advice. Wholeheartedly agree. You guys are brothers, obviously. Yeah, hope you know where I'm going to go with this. But it's sibling rivalry is one way to describe it. Partnership is obviously critical. I think as brothers, it may be a double-edged sword where you have the benefit afforded to you of knowing each other and knowing each other's weaknesses and strengths and how you approach decision making. Like, I don't know what you do, and I don't know what you do specifically, but I imagine you're looking at different components of the business, right? So that could be financials or marketing and sales, content, or what have you. So is that right or wrong?
It's pretty wrong.
Okay.
You were right on me. You were wrong.
Okay.
That is awesome.
That's hilarious.
It's hilarious. It's
I
hilarious.
put my glasses back on as the financial guy.
Yeah.
Very astute.
Makes you look a
Why
lot
did
better.
I think you would be the financial? There you go. That's much better.
Very financial.
Now you're the
There we
financial
go.
guy.
I'm ready.
So
Bring me the spreadsheets.
what?
Can I eat them?
Yes, no. So anyway, moving on, digressing. So what do you guys disagree on firstly, as brothers, and then more importantly, I don't know, maybe something interesting of personality or character-wise. And the second thing I'd love to get your views on is partnership. Like, how do you go about making sure you have the right partner? Because obviously, as we know, if you have the wrong partner, like that's a very bad apple to have in your bag,
Yeah. Well, maybe on the partnership thing, Sam could probably speak to this, but I think on disagreeing, probably the only thing that we meaningfully disagree on is who's better looking. And I mean, it feels fairly obvious to me.
Definitely you with the glasses.
Thank you very much. I mean,
You just don't always have your
case
glasses
closed. Case closed. But more seriously on the partnership thing, I've got views, but Sam,
Thank you. What a great handle. What a great handle for you.
Just throw him into the bus.
Partnership. I mean, you alluded to it earlier, Matt. I think, what comes with brotherhood is a deep understanding of one another. And based on our upbringing, and we were fortunate to have great folks, trust. Like a lot of trust. What the challenges that occur, like our crew, are mainly like archetypical. Like you've got competitive issues between brothers, whose shadow you standing in, why. So I think we had more of the right complementary strengths and more of the right benefits and less of the wrong kind of detractions over time. We saw for many years, we haven't done it in a while, but we saw a psychologist like weekly or bi-weekly for some time when we were going through some harder times. But I think
Together.
Together. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And kind of also just dedicating ourselves to aligning all the time. Like people have remarked over our business journey together how aligned we are. And that's time and effort and you get there with a lot of effort. It's messy at times, but you push through that and you get to the point. So whether it's a partnership in a marriage or a partnership in a business or brothers or friends or whatever it is, like partners, you choose them and then you make them, like the choice has an outsized impact on the success of the partnership, but it's by no means the only variable that impacts the quality of those partnerships. And that's like a constant dedication to each other, which I think we've done really well over the years. Barring a few things of misalignment, it's still misaligned on looks and those sort of things. But other than that, great.
Do you have anything to add?
I think that the situation as brothers is actually remarkably similar to just about every other. The dynamics that exist. Of course, there's some unique dynamics that exist between us as brothers, but the relationship that you have with any person who you significantly partner with, it's the same work that you need to put in to make it work. What's off the base of trust and deep understanding that we have of each other, there's just been we've worked flipping hard at it. And Sam speaks about the alignment. That alignment has come because of I believe because of the hard work. The other thing that happens is you spend enough time together that you quite literally start to entrain the way that you think, and it becomes, I guess the good news, at least of our experience, is that it gets easier. So what I would say to entrepreneurs out there who are in the midst of trying to find each other, trying to find alignment with their partners, keeping at it and working diligently on yourself as much as you work on the relationship between yourselves is what ultimately will lead to some degree of success. The good news is that if it is a good match between the two people, it does get easier. I've found that in our relationship, we had to work a lot harder at it in the early stages. And as alignment, trust, familiarity, entrainment has grown, it's gotten easier.
Trust is an important thing, not just from an ownership perspective, but also from a staff perspective. I mean, we got the room full of your lovely team here. Hello, ladies. So let's go. I love startups because if we can get one or two more of those guys to succeed, like amen. Who's the first person that you hire? Because I find that an interesting discussion to have, because is it someone who does sales? Is it someone that you trust? Is it someone that does sales but also does admin and is prepared to be your skivvy and book your diary and run around doing coffee because they want to learn about how to run a business? Like, in your experience, maybe you can use your own story, but who's the first person that you hire to get your business to start to scale? Because if you remain a one-man band, that's fine for some people if you want a lifestyle business. But if you want to build a big business like I do and you're hungry to do that, where do you start?
Probably one of the biggest challenges of self-funded startups, right? How do you scale your business, given that it was you to start? Some thoughts without prescriptive elements. I think every situation is different, and depending on the needs of the business at any one time, the big question is who's going to do the work. If business is just people doing things, as you scale, the things increase in size, and now you need people, a range of people to do that work. So the question is do you know who you are and what you're good at? And how can you, as quickly as possible, employ and delegate tasks to and projects to people who can do their work better than you. And the biggest challenge of that is like, how do you scale in a way which you don't have an end of support? If you raise VC, then that's different. But if you don't, and we didn't, how do you do that in a way which takes account of the constraint of your cash flow, of what work needs to be done, when, can you work more than 14, 18 hours a day? Like, and so you build slowly but surely. So you who you employ and when you employ them is in relation to like who you are and what you're good at and what you're not good at, because you want to employ people in the areas you're not good at, in relation to your cash flow and when you can afford them. And sometimes you need to raise money for that. And then there's a cultural piece, which I think is probably the most important medium to longer term consideration, which is, will this person, by employing them, they will impact your culture, the way things get done at your business, the behaviors and values of your business. So what happens in the very early days is that the people who seed the organization's culture have an outsized impact on everyone else's culture, because they bring with them ahead of time the way things get done. And new people who come in adopt those same principles. So who you get, who your partner is, who your first employees are, like if you get it right, you have an outsized impact on a positive culture. If they're the right people. If you get it wrong, and we got it wrong a few times, you need to cut.
So I guess the point of departure there is know where your weaknesses are. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, know yourself.
So hire for your blind spots, essentially.
Know yourself, know your business, hire for the spots that will make the business better.
How do you know what that is? Because as a startup, I mean, you have to do, you guys will know, I mean, you had the benefit of each other, but when it was just the two of you, you were like doing sales, marketing, HR, legal, like everything all at once, content production, web design, Do you know what I mean? Like the list goes on and on. So you have to wear like 30 hats. And so you're almost dipping into all of these different disciplines. You're not getting deep into anything to really know, well, one, do I actually enjoy it? And do I actually just suck at it? You know what I mean?
Totally.
So how do you go about finding your weaknesses?
Well, I think there's a couple of ways you might think about it. The one is just to overarchingly develop a reflective practice for yourself, and you might bring in people who are close to you. We had the benefit of each other from the outset, so we were able to be kind of bouncing boards for each other, hold up a mirror to each other on certain elements. So that was a distinct benefit that we had. But those sorts of reflective processes can happen with mentors. They can happen with people that you bring into your life, close friends, that sort of thing, who can help you give another perspective on what you're doing well and where you might need to improve. I have a sense that additional perspective is helpful, but the internal perspective, the internal honesty that you're able to develop about yourself, it kind of comes from a learner mindset, a mindset that says, I constantly need to learn. I need to figure out what I'm good at, what I need to improve on. And we refer to the term often at Get Smart of the new professional. The new professional in the world of work that is looking to establish themselves in a constantly changing environment and to kind of constantly be pinpointing themselves relative to the work that needs to be done. And so we at Get Smarter, we offer a range of short courses that help people to upskill themselves in those areas where they are lacking. We offer a regular newsletter that people are able to subscribe to, which gives them professional advice on how to deal with the new world of work. And I think that by developing this learner mindset and becoming a new professional, seeing this job of work being that it is constantly about your learning and your reflective practice, seeing what you're good at, seeing what you're not good at, where you need to outsource, where you need to upskill yourself, I think that you stand in good stead to make those individual decisions where that it's hard to say just generally what those might be.
Okay, cool. So the guys on our live stream right now, this is your chance to jump in and claim your prize worth or up to 14,000. So it's a question, right, Nats? Okay, so what is a new professional? Whoever gets that answer right, you just heard it. So hopefully you were paying attention. So what is a new professional? Just hit us up in the comments. And one of the ladies from the Get Smarter team will select the most correct answer. And then we'll make the announcement in a minute or two from now.
Incredibly objective, that.
It's, I know. Well, at least you guys came up with this. So, I mean, let's talk about motivation. Like, when you're in the trenches every day taking grenades, like, it's like a stock market graph, actually, the path of an entrepreneur. It's not a hockey graph, as much as people like to claim that in the media. And so when you're down, you're really down. Like you suffer from FUD, like fear, uncertainty, and doubt. You really you think you're a failure oftentimes. And then the next day will be amazing because something amazing happens in your business, you sell something and it's like, hurrah, right? What advice do you have for entrepreneurs about motivation? Like when they've lost, or when someone's lost their motivation, like what is your experience in picking yourself up and just carrying forward and pushing through whatever barrier it is that you're experiencing at that given point in time? Don't all jump at once, eh?
What do you think, Matt? I think a lot about this. I mean, I think I have a lot of thoughts on this. But I think entrepreneurship is not it's not a be all and end all. Like, and a lot of, if you look at the stats, a lot of what makes entrepreneurship successful, or the new enterprises, startups moving into hockey stick territory successful, is timing, which is stuff that we don't always control. Like, and it's well covered in Gladwell's Outliers and how he thinks about, like, Jobs and Gates and the way that they and the way that they succeeded because they were born at the right time, like into the computer space. And it's arguable they would have been successful in other industries as well. My point really is that I think it's much more about a very personal journey for the individual. Like, what entrepreneurship has offered us, or maybe I speak for myself, but I think Robert had a similar experience. You get like a full spectrum feeling of being alive by starting your own business and engaging with, to your point, the great highs and the deep lows that accompany ultimate responsibility for something. Probably not dissimilar to that of parenting, although I'm a new parent, so not a new professional, a new parent. And I feel like that's something which I'm going to experience now as well, the deep highs, the deep lows of taking responsibility for something. But entrepreneurship is like, the entrepreneurial mindset is about creating something without regard for resources currently controlled. And that is a scary space to be, with huge reward if you get it right. And I think you can be, without being labeled as an entrepreneur, you can engage in entrepreneurial-like behavior, whether you're internal, entrepreneurship, whatever it might be. And the way I think about motivation is more about, given that there is this thing called entrepreneurship and behaviors that describe you as an entrepreneur, and success is like, lagging indicators like acquisition of companies that position you as an entrepreneur squarely. My sense is it's far more important to find what it is that motivates you, like to get into flow each day. And sometimes that's not entrepreneurial activity, or that is classically described as entrepreneurial. But finding what it is that motivates you is far more important to me than like finding motivation for entrepreneurship per se. So a little bit of a side angled answer to your question. And that's the point where I hand over to Rob, who's also thinking about this very deeply.
I don't know that I would give a deep answer. I think I would give a very practical point, which is that managing your own energy, and this is particularly acute for me right now because I haven't been doing it recently, couldn't be more important. If you are fundamentally coming off a low base, and what I'm talking about low base is physically, energetically, mentally, you've been grafting for 14 to 18 hours every day, you're not sleeping, you're stressed out your eyeballs. It's tough to just take a knock and be like, I'm just going to motivate myself and get back on track. My question to entrepreneurs out there, and this is different for everyone, is what are you doing to manage your energy? What are you doing to make sure that your health is in good order, that your closest relationships are in good order? Those form the foundation on which you build your entrepreneurial activity on top of. And again, this is something that I almost feel like I shouldn't be giving this advice because I haven't been doing it particularly well lately. But when you're coming off a strong base, I think that you're much better equipped to deal with life's with the challenges that inevitably come your way in entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I find if I don't have energy, I'm literally useless.
Yeah.
Like you have to eat right, you have to rest, you have to meditate, you have to disconnect. You got to like literally unplug yourself. Totally. Otherwise, it becomes just one big mess, and you literally become like a walking zombie.
And I think that's the threat of entrepreneurship, is that there is so much to do, and you as the entrepreneur, there's no end to the amount of work you can do every day. So let's just say that again. You can work all day, every day, and you will never run out of tasks to do as an entrepreneur. And that, as much as it's exciting and enticing and can occupy the full breadth and depth of your mind, of your mental space, it doesn't work. I mean, again, speaking from experience, it doesn't work. Like you've got to be managing the other elements of your life effectively. I'm really glad you mentioned diet because I think it's a critical one. Diet, meditation, etc. These practices are very purposeful activities that you can bring into your life. And where I've been in a better state previously is when I've been disciplined and rigorous about doing those.
I literally don't sleep if I don't meditate right before I go to bed. I find like my brain waves just drop completely and like it's solid sleep. It's not
What do you use for that?
It's an app called Calm. Have you tried it? It's amazing. It's not like, there's a lot of meditation apps out there. But Calm is the best one that I've found. A lot of the content's recorded badly, some of the lessons aren't quite there. It's like crowdsourced meditation content. So Calm's completely the antithesis of that. It's done by psychologists and doctors and stuff like that, and proper, what do you call those, guys that do like meditation, hypnotherapy type people and so forth. So it's very lessons based. The production quality is insane. There's no community off the back of it, and it's expensive. And that's the other thing I like about it is because it's good. Expensive is oftentimes good and you get what you pay for. But it's called Calm. It's available on the app stores. So,
Cool.
so highly recommend. Yeah, check that out. Yeah. Final question for you. Before we do that, do we have a winner? Not yet. We'll contact the winner. Okay, cool. So let's do this. Last question I always ask all my guests, and it's about why. So why do you do what you do? Like, what gets you out of bed in the morning?
I'll have a stab. I think there's a multifaceted answer there, but I'll give just a glimmer of that spectrum. I fundamentally love the act of creation. I love the process of creating something and playing a very direct role in the I guess the process from something being a thought in the back of your mind to something that you start discussing with your colleagues to the point where it's actually out live and having a real impact on your customers is so deeply satisfying for me. And I think that, I guess maybe it speaks to, I have a background in music and art and other things. The act of creating for me is something that I don't yet fully understand the psychology of why it satisfies me so deeply. But I think that business has become another opportunity for that creative expression, in collaboration with others. And the fact that we have chosen an industry like education where the creation results in people's lives changing and these new professionals' lives being augmented, certainly helps as well.
I love that. It touches on like why do we do what we do? It touches on purpose, and we all have a purpose. We just don't always understand it, and sometimes you have to. Well, I went through a process of trying to reverse engineer like what gets me up, what like motivates me, what energizes me, and then trying to understand what is common about those things. And for me, I think very much based on upbringing and my mom, like I would like to see a world with more self-esteem. Like I think it's a challenge in the world, and I want to see a world with where there is heightened self-esteem. I think it's so crucial to our ability to balance ourselves across the roles in our lives. And Get Smarter, I think, was partly successful because Rob and I share a view of wanting to create the future in a way which is like really, really positive for the people that it impacts. And I'm not saying that from a philanthropic point of view. I'm saying that from like I just think it's in us. And where your purpose meets where your purpose meets entrepreneurial opportunity, you get a lot of flow quite quickly. And that's like high level stuff. Like the more base level stuff is, it's just nice to create, which is what Rob, and have a creative freedom, control, autonomy over the work you do. And then I think meaning in relational terms, like when you do it in a way that we've done it now with up to 350 people and now part of a broader 2U group of 2,000 people, and they're good people. The quality of the relationships is at the center of what brings you meaning every day. That's like social. In fact, neuroscience is now showing us that like we have reward centers for social activity because the group beats out the individual all the time. So evolutionary purposes, like it's better to be in groups. And man, like that's where we can draw most of the meaning from in our lives. It's difficult to work alone. Like and it's no wonder co-working spaces are so popular because people get to spend time with others. But neuroscience is showing us like we create meaning through the relationships in our lives. We are happy because of the quality. We are happy or not happy simply because of the quality of the relationships with the people closest to us. That's it. Like, and so why to do this? Sure, I didn't set out with this idea, but damn, it's been meaningful in terms of creating relationships with people who we love.
Amazing, gentlemen. Thank you so much for being on the Matt Brown Show. It's been amazing. Say cheers to our online viewers. Thanks very much for tuning in to the Matt Brown Show. Oh, who's the winner?
Thank you, Matt.
Liesel Dennis. Congratulations.
Congratulations,
you are
Liesel.
the winner.
Congratulations, Miss Dennis.
We'll be in touch. Natalie from the Get Smarter team will reach out to you on Facebook. Thank you guys for supporting the Matt Brown Show. This is Matt, and I'll see you in another show. Ciao.
Thanks, Matt.
Bye.
The Matt Brown Show. This is the Matt Brown Show.